Doing good? That's just a fun song, isn't it? Yeah. Well, hey, if we've not met before, like Dustin said, I'm Adam. I'm the campus pastor here. Love being part of this place. Love when they give me opportunities to teach. So I'm like maybe even more jacked up this morning than I normally am. Maybe more than you guys, but we'll find out by the end of this how everybody's doing. So I'm glad you've decided to spend part of your weekend, especially Father's Day weekend. And once again, to all the dads, thanks for being here, celebrating Father's Day with us. We've been in the middle of this series called Lost in Translation, where we've been looking at who God created women to be, the unique roles that you've been given, but those roles that in some cases, they've been lost in translation along the way. Now, I need to clear something up first, because Jim got up here week 1, and then Ben got up here week 3, and they both said that they're like scared to teach the women's series. I'm not scared or whatever. Like, you guys aren't that scary. I've got a mom, I've got a wife, I've got a daughter. I've got women in my life, so I'm actually excited to be able to teach today, but this is tricky. Because this is the women's series, and I have to teach you what's true about you, what God says is true about you. At the same time, it's Father's Day, and guys, we just tune out when it's not about us, right? So I've got to keep you engaged. I bet you guys are real jealous of me right now, so just pray for me, and we'll get through this together. It's going to be good. But in my life a few weeks ago, something happened that made me move from thinking, like, it's cool that we're doing a women's series, like, great, we're going to talk to women, to like realizing I needed to really pay attention to this series. My first daughter was born a few weeks ago. I've got more pictures, by the way. Yeah. There she is. Isn't she sweet? She puts her hands up by her head like she's modeling for every picture that we take. But don't let that picture deceive you, because literally like 5 minutes after that was taken, she projectile pooped all over me. And her aim is true. Like, she hits me square in the chest every single time. She knows what she's doing there. But what I realized as I was processing being a dad to a daughter is I have exactly zero experience when it comes to being a woman, right? It's just true. Like, I've got a mom who's a woman. I've got a wife who's a woman. I've got a sister who's a woman. I've got a daughter who will one day be a woman. And all of a sudden I realized, like, I need this series too. Because as a man and a dad to a daughter, I want my daughter to know who she was created to be. And I want the other women in my life to know who they were created to be. And I want to do everything I can to encourage and challenge them toward that. So all of a sudden, I'm leaning in and I'm going, I need to pay attention here. I need this too. So throughout this series, we've been looking at what's true of a woman, who you were created to be, who God says you are, and how in some cases along the way, that truth, that definition of who God's made you to be, it's been lost in translation. So week 1, we took a look at how women are created in God's image and likeness. You were created to be helpers. Which in some cases, when you hear helper, it sounds like a second-class citizen or something. But really it means this, that women were created to co-rule with God and men as allied sources of strength and reinforcement. And then week 2, Lindsay came and she looked at how women, you're not created just to say, like, it's not my place on one hand, or to be overbearing or controlling on the other. But in the middle, there's this sweet space of influence. You were created as a woman to have influence. And then last week, Ben gave us an overview of what it means to be a woman who reflects the characteristics of God as a fierce comforter. And it goes like this. Women were created to guard, to train, and to comfort the people under their care in the same way that God himself would. Now, for a lot of women, and I don't claim to know this, but I hear it from you, it's encouraging to learn all this stuff, right? And to learn about who you were created to be. It's encouraging. But if you're being really honest, and some of you have been with me, it's much different to believe it, right? And it's much harder to live it out. Let me give you an example from my life. Literally, as I was typing the words on this page on Monday, my wife was at home and she's calling and texting me. This was her first day at home on her own with our 2 boys who are 4 and 3 and our daughter who's 4 weeks old today without any extra support or help. And literally, this is what's going on as I was typing this page. She walks in the door and our dog has eaten a pie off the counter and like all the foil and stuff's all over the floor. And then he gets in her purse and he digs through her purse and he spreads out everything from her purse all over the floor. This is our dog. It's not even our kid. Then we have kids. And our boys, they now share a room since we have a daughter. And they were in their room supposed to be taking a nap. But our 3-year-old, he's really been struggling with like nap time and bedtime and really just life in general right now, and we think it has something to do with like his sister being here and anxiety around that, but the only word I could think of to describe how he's been this week is a little terrorist. If you have a 3-year-old, you know, don't judge me, it's true. So he's yelling, the boys are playing in their room, and then Quill, the terrorist, the 3-year-old, he decided to start throwing stuff. So first he goes for a piggy bank and shattered it all over the floor. And then he goes for the sound machine that helps them like sleep, and he throws that too. And then Ashley walks in the room, and he starts yelling at her. And then he decides it'd be a good idea to hit her in the mouth. And in the meantime, our newborn daughter, she's still in her car seat, and she's starting to cry because she's getting hungry, and it's time for her to eat. And then the day just got worse from there. And you know what she didn't feel like in that moment? She didn't feel like a helper, right? And she didn't feel like she had influence with anyone. And she certainly didn't feel like a fierce comforter. I think she felt more like a fierce killer in that moment by the time it was all said and done. But when I got a chance, I asked Ashley, I said, what stories do you make up about yourself in moments like that? And she shared this. She gave me permission to share it, and it was a quote. She said, when Quill doesn't listen, I don't think that there's anything I can do to help him. He yells and he screams, and I get to a point where I don't even want to step into the situation because it feels like nothing helps. And then she asked this question, what kind of mom just walks away instead of stepping in? A scared mom. She says, I'm scared because I feel like I have no control. I'm scared that he's always going to be mean and hateful. And the story that I tell myself, the bottom line is that I am a failure. Can anyone relate to that? I mean, I know a lot of the moms in the room, this has been the story of your life at some point. It might be the story of your life right now. But I bet on some level this applies to every woman, and beyond woman, this applies to every person here, doesn't it? You know who you're supposed to be, and you know who God created you to be. But you just feel exhausted, and you feel defeated, or empty, or beat up. Or like Ashley says often, she's like, I'm just done. And you start to believe this lie. You start to believe the lie that what God says is true about you. That he created you to be a helper in the same way that he's a helper. That you could have influence over the people in your care. That you could fiercely comfort those entrusted to you. You believe that all of that's a lie, and it's not possible. Right? I mean, maybe it is for someone else, but not you. So I asked some of the women on our staff this week to share with me some of the lies that they've believed about themselves and things that just don't go away, things that just constantly run through their head. No matter what they believe God says about them, this doesn't leave the back of their head. See if any of this resonates with you. They say things like, I'm just not good enough. Or I'm not worthy of love. I'm not smart. I don't matter as much as anyone else or everyone else. My only worth is found in what I do for other people. Or if my body is different than others, I have to work on fixing it. Or maybe the bottom line is this, I don't deserve grace or love. Does any of that hit home? In essence, what they're saying is, yeah, God, you say all this stuff about me, but that's not true for me. That's for the woman who has the right body shape. That's for the woman who has the right husband or the right job or the best behaved kids. That's true for her, but it couldn't be true for me. And so at Flatirons, we've described this feeling this way before. And we've used this analogy before. We say it this way, if your life is like a page, then the truth that I think Jesus wants us to start with this morning is that people, including yourself, will write lies on the page of your life. And here's the scary thing. You'll actually believe them, won't you? You'll believe that you're not enough. You'll believe you're unworthy. You'll believe you're unlovable. You'll believe that you're not smart or funny or a helper. You'll believe you can't have influence. And you'll believe you're not a fierce comforter. The bottom line is you'll believe that you're not enough. And in the middle of all of this, you ready for some good news? It's kind of heavy, isn't it? Along the way, something's been lost in translation. as we and other people have written lies on the pages of our lives, and we believe that they're true. And what's been lost in translation is this, that no matter what's been written on the page of your life, Jesus chooses you. Jesus chooses you in spite of your pain and in spite of your past. And so that's what I want to talk about today. The story that we're going to look at, it's found in John chapter 4. This is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. And Jesus has a conversation with a woman in this story who, like us, has believed every lie written on the page of her life. And I know we've covered a lot of heavy stuff already, but before we just jump into this, I want to ask us just to take a breath. It's going to be all right. And we're going to step back for a second. I want to give a little bit of background info on what's going on to help us understand the context of this woman's life and her situation. So this happens about 12 to 18 months into Jesus' ministry. And up to this point, most of what he's done, it's been in a region of Israel, in southern Israel, called Judea. This is the area that's around Jerusalem in southern Israel. If you can picture like a map with me for just a minute. And so in the middle of this, more and more people are coming to see who Jesus is. They're coming to follow him and check him out. And the religious leaders of that day were getting jealous because they said that these people, they had to go through them, the religious leaders, in order to get to God, but these people were going to Jesus instead. And so Jesus' response to their jealousy was, that's cool. I'll leave Judea and I'm going to go up north to a region called Galilee. So you've got Judea in the south, you've got Galilee up north. And this is where we're going to pick up the story. Now Jesus, to get to Galilee from Judea, he had to go through Samaria. So again, in Israel, Judea in the south, Galilee in the north, and right sandwiched in between is a region called Samaria. So if you were looking at a map, it would make sense. The most direct route to Galilee from Judea was to go straight through Samaria. But the people of that day, they would go, no, you don't go through Samaria. You go around Samaria. And this is a big deal to Jews of that day, people in Israel, because they couldn't stand Samaritans. The Samaritans had intermarried with enemies of the Jews, and then they kind of made up their own religion, and they were considered inferior to every way to the Jews. And they were the outcasts of society. And the Jews looked down on them, and so much so that they didn't even go through Samaria. They went around. But here's Jesus, and he's like, hey, we got to go through Samaria. And here's what happens as he does. It's pretty cool. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near a plot of ground that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Now, Jacob and Joseph, they're part of the family that God chose to found Israel. You can read about them in Genesis. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, he sat down by the well, and it was about noon. And then a Samaritan woman came along to draw water, and Jesus said to her, hey, will you give me a drink? Now, I think it's important to note that John, who's an eyewitness and a friend of Jesus who's here witnessing all this, he writes down what time it was. He said it's noon. In that culture, all the women of the village, they would go in the morning before it got hot to get water, and they would typically go together. This was kind of like a community thing. It was a together thing for all the women in the village. But yet, here's this woman. It's noon. It's one of the hottest parts of the day, and she's all alone. She's not going with the other women from the town. So the story of the woman so far, it goes like this. She's a Samaritan who's looked down on by the Jews. She lives in a society where at that time, women were looked at as inferior to men. And we'll find out that her family life is a mess, so much so that not even the other women wanted to be around her. Or maybe she didn't feel like she could be around them. Whatever that looked like, she's by herself. And so she's the outcast of the outcast of the outcast. And the stories of who she is and what she's done and what's been done to her, they've been written on the page of her life. And it's affecting every part of her life. And here comes Jesus. He's been walking all day. He's tired and thirsty, and he just sits down and he goes, hey, would you give me something to drink? Now, think about this for a minute. How incredible is it that Jesus, who claimed to be the God who created the universe, who, if that's true, he created this woman and he knows her inside and out, he actually places himself in a position of need, and he asks this woman to provide for him. And here's why he did that. In doing so, he's going to begin to restore the meaning and purpose to this woman's life. He's going to restore to who she was created to be. And here's why I think Jesus does this. Because he knows that this is true for all of us, especially this woman. He knows that it's true that people, including ourselves, will write lies on the page of our lives and will actually start to begin believing that they're true. So the woman says to Jesus in verse 9, she says, hey, you're a Jew and I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? And just for added emphasis, John, who recorded this, he goes, by the way, Jews, they don't hang out with Samaritans, just in case you missed that note. But the translation here is this woman, she's believed every lie that's ever been told to her about who she is as a woman and as a Samaritan. She actually believes she has very little worth or value. In verse 10, Jesus answered her. He said, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. Now, if you're like me, you read this and you're like, what? Like, what does this even mean? And from this woman's perspective, she had to be thinking the same thing. She has to go, like, Jesus, you're crazy. See, like we're going to find out in a minute, this woman has had plenty of men in her life, and here's another one showing up claiming to be a gift from God to her. And she's not buying it, as she shouldn't, because ladies, side note, real quick, if a man shows up in your life and he goes, hey, I'm God's gift to you, just run away. That's something I'm going to tell my daughter. He's scary. He is not a gift. Run. And this woman, she's been taught this lesson because you can follow along in John 4 if you wanted to, but you can almost hear the sarcasm in her response to Jesus. She goes, so, how are you going to get this water? Like, in case you didn't know, Jesus, this is a well and it's deep. I don't even see a cup. You didn't even bring a cup with you. And you don't have a bucket or a rope. And by the way, you're the one that's thirsty, right? So, what do you even have to say to me about water? I'm the one that comes and gets water here every day. And then Jesus shows back up in her life and he answers her. And I think Jesus matched her sarcasm with a little bit of sarcasm of his own in this moment. But he goes, yeah, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. Now, this is what I love about Jesus, because he is so kind to this woman, but I think he meets her right where she's at with a hint of sarcasm. And I think reading between the lines to this woman in that day, it would have sounded something like this. Jesus is going, okay, you're right, I don't have a bucket or a rope, but I bet you come back here to this well every day, don't you? And I bet even after you drink this water, you're thirsty again, right? And I bet every day that you come to this well by yourself, you're reminded of your shame and your isolation and every lie that's been written on the page of your life. The lies that you're an outcast, that you're not good enough, and that you don't have anything to offer to anyone. So, Jesus says, what if I could give you like something that will actually lead to something good for you, something life-giving? What if I could give you some water that would satisfy the deepest part of your life? What if I could give you water that would lead to eternal life? And we've defined eternal life this way here at Flatirons. That's life with God right here, right now, today. What would that look like? But still, this woman, she's skeptical. In fact, I don't think she's buying it at all. And see if this sounds familiar, because I think sarcastically, again, she goes, okay, sure, Jesus. Yeah, sure. Give me some of that water. I mean, what could you possibly know about my life? What could you know about coming to this well day after day? I mean, Jesus, really? Tell me, what do you know about my life or my deepest desires? So sure, give me some of that magic living water you're talking about, Jesus. I'll take some. And I think she pauses and takes a big breath, realizing that she's tired. And she says, because I'm thirsty. And I'm tired of going back to the same old well day after day. And look, for a lot of us, we know what it's like to feel this way, right? We know what it's like to ask Jesus, Jesus, what could you possibly know about my life? Look, we know what it's like to be empty, don't we? And to desire more out of life, to not be satisfied, and to keep going back to the same well day after day. and we wake up again every morning and we're thirsty. And in that moment, Jesus, he meets this woman and us right where we are at. In the middle of your most hurt and broken parts of your life, Jesus says, so you want to know what I know about your life? He says to this woman, you want to know what I know about your desires? You want to know what I know about the most thirsty part of your life? He told her in verse 16, go call your husband and come back. And I think she hangs her head again. She goes, I have no husband. And Jesus said to her, you know what? You're right. You're right when you say you have no husband. The fact is you've had 5 husbands. And the man that you have now is not your husband. What you said is actually quite true. Now, in most cases, I've heard this taught that this woman, her situation, that it's her fault. There have been lies written on the page of her life that go something like this. You're a whore. You're a slut. She's someone who's burned through husband after husband after husband, and she's just kept on moving from one man to the next. But something's been lost in translation along the way, and I think it's lost in translation by men, if I'm being really honest about that. Because in that culture, women didn't even have the right to divorce. Only a man could do that. And so this woman, she's been used and abused and left behind by 5 different men. And now she's on man number 6. And we could speculate on why that is and what's going on, that these men have all divorced her and left. But instead, I just want to invite us to imagine. Like, can you imagine in her situation the lies that have been written on the page of her life and the things that she started to believe are actually true about herself? And yet in the middle of that, here's Jesus. He shows up in her life. He notices her. And he's offering her something no other man has ever been able to give her. That's life. And that leads to the next truth I think Jesus wants to teach us. Not only have lies been written on the page of our lives, but Jesus knows your pain. Jesus knows your pain. And he wants every part of your life. So he tells this woman, you want living water? Like, do you want real life? Do you want to be satisfied and never be thirsty again? Go get your husband. Go get the part of your life that represents your past. Go get the part of your life that you're most ashamed of. Go get your regrets. Get the area of your life most marked by failure and defeat. Go get those lies that are written. Bring that page to me, because I know that pain, and I want all of you. Now, if you read on in this story, you see this woman start to do something that I think a lot of us learned along the way if you grew up in church. Because she tries to deflect, and I think it's to try to protect herself. She's learned this technique. She tries to deflect by getting into a conversation about religion. And that's what religion does, doesn't it? Religion will tell you, like, yeah, your life's a mess, but you're the only one. Nobody else feels that way. You're the only one whose marriage is falling apart. You're the only one who doesn't know how to parent your kids. You're the only one whose worth and value is only found in what you can offer to a man through your body. You're the only one who's not good enough. Religion says you're the only one, and you'll never be good enough. So hide. And some of you know exactly what I mean because you walked in here beat up by religion at the church you came from. And here's where you need to know that Jesus shows up. He shows up right there with you and he goes, hey, I know your pain. Bring it here. I want every part of your life, and I will satisfy you.
I have a father who is an alcoholic, and he struggles to this day. The ripple effect of that was I heard messages growing up that I didn't matter, that he would rather choose to drink than spend time with me. My name is Crystal Yepes. I'm the Kids Ministry Director over at Flatirons Longmont. When I was in second grade, my dad and mom got a divorce, and my mom remarried 2 years later. My stepdad became that father figure that I never had. But that all changed when I was 16 years old. One morning, I got up early before anyone else in the house, and I was getting ready for my volleyball game. I showered and then went into my room and was getting ready, getting dressed in front of my dresser mirror. And then all of a sudden I saw this dark figure peering at me through the window, and my heart started beating out of my chest. All I could think of is I need to hide, I need to run into my closet. I shut the door of my closet, and I'm thinking to myself, I need to get dressed. I need to quickly tell my stepdad that some creep is looking at me through my bedroom window. So I did, and I bolted to my bedroom door and met my stepdad in the hallway, and I told him what happened, and he had this stone cold look on his face. And then he admitted to me that it was him. And all I could think is, why? Why would you do this to me? Because a father is supposed to protect their daughter. So everything changed after that. I lost my voice. I lost my confidence. I even changed my posture. I wanted to hide. I didn't want people to see me. And I kept telling myself that it's not a big deal. He didn't molest me, so it doesn't matter. Why do I feel this way? So that comparison piece just made it worse. The lies kept flooding in. I don't matter. All that matters is your looks. I became exhausted with wanting to be perfect all the time, put together, strong, put on a mask, because I felt that was the best way to deal with the anger that I suppressed for so long. After becoming a mom, I decided that, man, I can control their lives. I can control what's happening to people close to me. Through my control, then no one can hurt me. I just want to be perfect all the time because that feels safe, and I know that I'm working towards something. I'm afraid to speak up because if I say something that's not intelligent or maybe it wasn't relevant at the time, if I hear that, then it makes me feel that I don't have a voice and that I don't have anything to offer. So I shut down and I don't speak up. So the ones closest to me felt my brokenness, my anger, my sadness. And for the past 4 years, I've been on staff here at Flatirons, and I've been living with this tension of obediently accepting the call of what God's asked me to do here at Flatirons, but then also still have that tension of I'm still upset at God for not protecting me, for not showing up. And so through this series, and just recently also with therapy, I've decided to work on this anger. And I think the hardest part is inviting God into my mess because I've been hiding from him for so long. And trying to be honest and tell him, hey, I'm angry at you. Why did you let this happen to me? But I think that as I am taking those steps forward to trust God, I'm seeing that he is listening to me, that there is hope, that there is healing, and that through my brokenness, he could use that for good to help other people. I'm hearing that it's okay to not be okay. And he's listening to me. And through this women's series, I'm hearing messages of who he created me to be. Because I don't know what it feels like to be the daughter of someone that's proud of me. I'm slowly learning, and I'm a work in progress. because trust takes time. But I'm learning that Jesus says he loves me. Jesus says that I matter to him. Jesus says that I can rest. And Jesus says I can just be me and stop trying so hard.
All right. Well, hey, I'm going to invite us to take a little bit of a risk here. Kind of do this together, okay? Has anyone ever felt like Crystal? Like felt alone or isolated, or like you're the only one? Or felt like you had to be perfect? Or maybe that you didn't have a voice? Or maybe you're like Crystal's story or my story, you've been mad at God. Maybe it's because of what's been done to you, because of the lies written on your page. And here's the risk I'm going to ask us to take. And I want to start with just the women in the room. If you can identify with any of that, would you be willing just to raise your hand? Hey, look around real quick. You're definitely not alone. Now, women, keep your hand up for a minute. Men, I have a feeling that some of us can identify with that too. So men, if this is true for you, would you let these ladies know that they're not alone and just raise your hand? Man, we are in a room full of people that maybe we spend a lot of time hiding. Maybe we spend a lot of time, you can put your hands down, that's fine. Maybe we spend a lot of time running away, but what you need to hear right now is whatever that area of life is that you just raised your hand for, Jesus knows your pain. Jesus knows your pain. And he wants every part of your life. And he's inviting you to come out of hiding and to stop isolating and to stop hiding behind religion or anything else. He's saying, hey, bring it all. The lies, your hopes, your dreams, your failures, I want all of you. Now, back at the well, the woman, she says to Jesus, she says, hey, I know that this man called the Messiah, the Christ, he's supposed to be coming. And when he comes, he'll explain everything to us. He'll help make sense of everything. And you can almost start to feel like a shift in her voice, can't you? That maybe things are changing as she's meeting a man who sees her for who he created her to be, who knows the lies that she's believed and the ones that she's lived. And maybe it's changing things when Jesus meets her in her pain. And for the first time ever to anyone, Jesus chose to reveal who he really is to this woman. He says this, he goes, well, hey, that Messiah, me, the one you're talking to, I'm he. That's me. And that leads me to the last thing that I think Jesus wants to teach us through this story. That Jesus chooses you. He chooses you in spite of your past and in spite of your pain. And he rewrites that story with purpose and potential. Women, hear me on this one. Those lies that you believed and that pain that you feel in that area where you feel like you're not enough. Look, not only does Jesus know your pain, and not only does he want every part of you, but he's actually saying, I choose you. And I'm choosing your pain, and I'm choosing your past. And that area, I want to rewrite it as your area of greatest purpose and potential. If you'll bring it to me. If you'll trust me with it. If you'll let me work in that area of your life, I can rewrite the next part of your story. And that's what happens in this woman's life, because she takes off, she forgets her water pot by the well, she forgets why she even showed up there. I don't even think she got Jesus a drink. He's still tired and thirsty sitting there. But she goes back into the village and she goes, hey, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? And they came out of the town, they made their way toward him. And what I love is that this woman, the part that she used to try to hide, the part that she was ashamed of, she actually chose to lead with her past. She chose to lead with her pain, the area of life that represents her greatest hurt and failure. And look, it's not that the lies were totally erased, but she's choosing to believe the truth that Jesus is rewriting her past and her pain as her greatest potential and purpose. And so she says, hey, come see a man who's told me everything I've ever done. To which the people in the town, I think, were like, what? This should be interesting. I mean, we've heard stories about you. But she didn't stop there. She goes, could this be the Messiah? And what ended up happening in this story was that the course of history was changed for an entire town. This woman started by introducing these people to Jesus, leading with her past and her pain. But that began with Jesus choosing this woman, with Jesus choosing her past and her pain and everything. And when she brought it all to him, he rewrote her story with purpose and potential. Look, Jesus chooses you in spite of your past and your pain. And he wants to give you purpose and potential in the middle of that as well today. So you've been processing this for a while, and I want to get personal here. What about you? What lies have been written on the page of your life? Maybe it's a marriage that the lie is it's never going to get better. Or maybe it's you'll never get married to begin with. Maybe it's that your only worth or value as a woman is if you're married or if you have kids. Or maybe it's around anxiety or depression. Look, you'll never be enough as long as you feel that way. Maybe the lies you believed, it's about your parenting, or it's about an addiction, or it's about a career. But what lies have been written on the page of your life? And in the middle of all of that, look, Jesus knows your pain. And he wants every part of your life. So what difference could he make? Knowing that you can bring it all to him. That he's offering you life. He's offering living water that doesn't run out. He's offering to satisfy those parts of your life in a way like you never even imagined. And then beyond that, what would it look like to allow Jesus to choose you in spite of your pain and in spite of your past, and to rewrite your story, and specifically those areas of your life with purpose and potential? Now, I don't know what that is for you, but I got a couple suggestions or starting points, maybe some challenges if you're up for it. So it's Father's Day, and men, even though this is a women's series, tune back in for a minute. I want to challenge you. You're not off the hook here. So men, what would it look like to step into the lives of the people God has entrusted to us, especially the women, and write a different story on the page of their lives, one that Jesus would tell? Look, in so many ways, we just saw it by people raising their hands in this room. Lies are being written all over the pages of the lives of our wives and our kids and our families and our coworkers and our neighbors and our friends. That's just true. Like, that's what's happening. So my challenge to you this week, men, is tell them what's true about them. Affirm them. Write a story on their lives that's real. Tell them what you see in them. And we always say around here at Flatirons, leaders go first, so I'll go first on this one. It means for me, it's sitting down with my wife and encouraging her. It means telling her that she's a great mom, especially in that area, because she's struggling right now. She's changing kids that are going to change the world, I believe. And for my daughter, Jovi, it's sharing everything with her that I just shared with you and more. It's writing down what I hope for her. It's letting her know who Jesus says she is and who God created her to be by the way that I care for her right now. She wouldn't understand if I tried to say it to her. She doesn't know words yet. It's also telling her that no matter what pain she experiences, and telling her that, look, there will be pain in your future. That Jesus will choose her pain in her past and can rewrite that part of her story as her greatest purpose and potential. In fact, that's where her only hope is going to be found. And I'll do this for my boys too, for my youngest son, Quill. Even though I don't like what he's doing right now and how he's acting, he's the terrorist, by the way. It's letting him know he's not a terrorist. He's still my son. And that I love him. And that he's smart and he's brave and he's caring and he's kind. And for Oliver, my oldest son, it's letting him know that he's so strong and he's loving. And like, no joke, he's one of the most courageous kids I know. And he's going to be ER trip after ER trip, I think. But I would tell him that, man, I love being their dad. And I can't wait to see the men and the woman that my daughter's going to become. Because again, I think they're going to change the world. So men, we get to lead the way in this. We get to write a better story on the pages of the lives of the people that are around us than what's been given to them. So let's do that. And maybe I'm going to add one more thing here real quick. Maybe it means stepping into the life of a fatherless boy through Fathers in the Field. Could you imagine the lies that are written on that boy's life? Maybe it's saying, I've got 4 days a month that I'll give to a kid to write a different story on his life. Now, women, here's my challenge for you. My challenge for you is to write out the lies that you believed. You can just put them on a page, literally, list them. List them out. And then right next to that, on the other side, I want you to write down how that area of your life could represent purpose or potential if you invite Jesus into that part of your story. And if you want to get really crazy, let's take it a step further, and let's be like the woman at the well. Let's go, hey, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Share it with a friend. Tell somebody what's going on in your life, the lies that you believed, and what Jesus might be doing in the middle of that. Let's just take a risk this week and see how Jesus might want to show up, just like he did for the Samaritan woman. So I'm going to close here. Women, you were created. You were created to be helpers in the same way that God's a helper to us. And you were created to have influence beyond what you even imagine. And we need you to step into that. And you were created to be fierce comforters to those that God's entrusted to you. So how do you leverage that? Well, you allow Jesus to choose you in spite of your pain and in spite of your past. And you let him rewrite those areas of your life as your greatest purpose and potential. So we're going to sing one more song, and this song is all about that. It's all about bringing your life before Jesus, the lies, the things written on your page, and it's about inviting him to bring life to those things. It's about resurrection. So if this is true for you and you go, Jesus, I need this, I'm going to invite you just to sing it out with everything you have. Because this is a song and this is true. This is truth for you this morning. So can we stand up? I'm going to pray for us, and then we're going to sing. Man, Jesus, you're good. And Father, I know even these words, like there's still somebody in this room that's going, yeah, but not me. That's not true for me. Jesus, in these next few minutes, we're asking you to do what only you can do in somebody's life. And just show up like you did for this woman at this well. To notice us, to see us, to let us know that you know about the lies and you choose us anyway. And to let us know that even though there's lies written, you've created us with purpose and potential beyond what we even know. So Jesus, what we're asking for right now is some areas in our lives. We want resurrection. We want life. We want something that sounds like living water, where we're satisfied and we're never thirsty again. So in these next few minutes, whether it's through a challenge that we're going to go affirm people, or we're going to write down the lies, we're going to share it with a friend, or if we're just going to sing these words, Jesus, and pray and hope that they're true, we're asking you to show up and do what only you can do in our lives. And thank you for loving us. Thanks for being here. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.